Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. And as you can probably see along the bottom here, we're talking about how to handle growth that sort of gets out of control, that makes you feel like jittery. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yes, in actual fact, it doesn't have to be growth, actually. It's just handling more vacancies, more work. That's the
Right.
problem, really. I mean, sometimes that leads to more growth. Sometimes it doesn't, weirdly. But yes, it's about this sudden explosion of opportunity around you, and that's not actually necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, because for me, what I've heard in business is being busy, great thing, like good thing.
Well, who have you heard that from?
I've just heard this out, around. So are you telling me that that's bad? Because more growth means more money, means I get richer
Well,
as a business
let
owner.
me tell you, right, as you know, in Flair, it's all about the money, So with my clients, it's about profit. I only really care about profit. I don't care about the turnover of the headcount or anything. It's profit. Is that profit going to deliver you what you want from the business? Because if it does, thumbs up. If it doesn't, then we ain't doing it right. And very often, when you're very busy and you've got a lot of vacancies that you're working on, that's actually not the case. That the profits don't go up, the revenues don't necessarily go up. And so it's not a great thing. You heard the expression busy fool. Well, that's not a million miles off. And it's endemic in the recruitment industry. And it's not the first time it's happening a
Yeah.
lot now. Talking to a lot of people that are working on a lot of vacancies, much more than they would before. And not necessarily making that much money out of them, as much as they'd expected, at least.
Okay, so it's running hot without the benefits of it. It's running hot without getting the suntan. Okay, so I want to talk about the science. Before I do that, I'm interested. Anybody who's listening, have you ever run hot in a business, either a business that you've owned, or have you ever worked in one where it's sort of been hot? And I'd just like to know your experience if you have. But let's talk about what to look for. So we've mentioned a couple of things, but what would you class as a business that's running too hot? What would you class as that?
Well, I can define it. It's you're working, your work rate is more than your capacity, is what that means. And it doesn't matter whether you're a factory or a person doing recruitment on their own. You've only got so many hours or so much capacity to spend. And quite frankly, you're taking on too much work. I mean, that's what it looks like. In terms of what the signs are to see whether you're heading in that direction, I think is important. I think the first one is stressed out staff. You can just see them stressed out. So so if you're on your own, then you're stressed, and you should know that. Got no time for anything, working long hours.
Don't get to see your family, do your hobbies, don't get to do the things you enjoy.
Morning, and I think we've sorted it out. He's a client, right? Just started working with him. He was like starting 7:30 in the morning, working till 6, having his tea, doing some kids with the kids, and back in the office for a couple of hours, and then coming back and watching TV for an hour and doing things on his phone. It's like, no. That's not sustainable, and it's not scalable either. So you can tell in yourself, but in other people, if you look, you can see, someone, if someone's stressed, they're not themselves, they're a bit crabby, they don't look like they're sleeping particularly.
Sometimes their quality of work goes down a little bit.
Very often, they start to underperform. Some cases they take time off sick. These days, mental health is the thing, and people just say, look, I'm just too anxious to work or whatever. So you can see the signs of stress in people. That's not particularly difficult to do. And that's worrying. I mean, that's really bad. But there's also a problem around clients, because one of the side effects of busy people is that their service levels drop, and their clients don't get the same service that they got before. And weirdly, if you were really good at what you do, I mean, if you're a very good recruiter, then it's even more noticeable. If you're only ever average, it's probably not as noticeable.
None of our listeners are average, Mike. I don't know what you're talking about. No one here is average. They're all exceptional.
If they knew someone that was average, but it's true. If you're kind of okay but not brilliant, well, people will see a little bit of a drop. It's not a big deal. If you're really good at what you do, and then suddenly you're taking on all this work and you're stretching yourself thin across all these different clients and these opportunities that you have, and trying to deal with like staff problems and all the rest of it, then they'll notice it. And
because
it's
those nice to haves that stop, isn't it? It's those, ringing me up for a chat that stop. It's the sending me things that are relevant to me because you don't have time to do them. So you just do your job. But it's the
they're
nice
called
to haves that
critical.
make your relationship strong.
Yeah, they're called critical non-essentials is the actual name for them, if you can say that. I'll say it again really slowly. Critical non-essentials. And what it means is that these things, they're not essential, the things that you do, but they're super critical when it comes to building relationships and making them strong. You just stop doing them because you don't have the time. And also with your staff, exactly the same. You don't have enough time to spend with your people that you used to do, just shooting the breeze and understanding, feeling their mood because you're just too busy. So but the worrying part with clients is that either, I don't think you'd lose one necessarily just by not giving them the same level of service, but they'll perhaps give requirements to other companies which they've never done before, or perhaps where they would give you something exclusively, they're less likely to do that than they would before. So you can see the signs if you look for them. The other thing you can do you know what else you can do?
What?
You can ask them. Do you think that our service levels have dropped? Nobody's going to do that, I know, but you can. And if your relationship is strong enough, you can. And what that means is that you get absolute proof that something's going wrong. You're working on too much stuff and you can't cope,
Yeah. And I think as well, I know a lot as well talking to our clients is there has been instances of I work with a client and the client being like, oh, will you do this for me as well? And it's not actually in your niche or in your area, but people would historically go, yeah, I'll help out. But in actual fact, that also adds to that heat and you probably won't do a very good job and all of these other things, which is very common as well.
That's true, actually. Weirdly, I saw a study. It's going back a wee while, so I don't have access to it, which is a shame because I use it all the time now. But something like 25% of everything that you do, it doesn't matter if you don't do it. There's no material effect on you or your business if you don't do it. And actually, you think, no, that's not my case because I'm busy all day. Yeah, I know. It's not like you're on the internet just looking for puppy
Cat
dog
videos,
videos. Yeah, or something. But it's actually more to do with there are certain things which have a real impact and some that don't, or you have a long-term view that they do, or you've done them because you've always done them. Right. So, I mean, there is a bit of give and take. You can recover some of that time, but then all you'll do is fill it up with more requirements. So I think you need a slightly better approach to this, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But the other thing as well is that you can notice is a drop in conversion rates. So you've got vacancies, but you're not converting, certainly not converting on the old levels that you did before. Now, part of that is because it's really hard to find candidates, right? So everyone knows it.
We'll give you that.
You're probably noticing conversion rates dropping a little bit anyway, certainly if you're on contingent or exclusive work. I get that. And even on retained, if you're on retained, you're probably harder to fill. Perhaps you've got hangovers, you're working on deals that you should have closed last year, but you kind of got to go again with them, which you never had before. So I get that. But if you're covering more ground with the same amount of capacity, then clearly you're not going to put as much effort into each role that you did before. And that's going to cause your conversion rates to drop. So these are the signs to look for, and they're pretty obvious, really. If you want to see them, then you will see them. And if you've seen any of those signs, then alarm bells should be ringing, because what is the point of spending 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years building a strong relationship with a client, which is there, you're in the circle with them. You're part of their team. And then suddenly, because you're taking on too much, the service levels drop and you risk being moved out of the circle or letting other people in the circle, which is probably more like it.
Yeah, because once they've got their claws in, it's hard to get them out again.
Absolutely. What do we do if we see the competition drowning, Kirsty?
We throw stones at them.
We do. I taught her to say that when she was very little.
Like 3, genuinely like 3.
But the point is, what we don't want is more competitions to throw stones at. We want them out. So you're risking quite a lot here, as well as burnt out staff that could leave or go sick. It's, but no, it's not acceptable.
Okay, so I think we've recognized what running hot looks like, or what running hot in a healthy way for an extended period of time looks like. So let's say somebody's watching this now, Mike, and they're going, I recognize at least 1 or 2 of those signs. What do I do, Michael? Help me, Michael. Help me.
Okay.
What do we do?
There is a number of things that you can do. In the short term, you can try and make more time. It's not a long-term fix, right? So it's not, because there's only a finite amount of time that you can make. And if that's 25%, happy days, but in reality, it probably won't be.
When you say make time, I'm assuming you're not trying to destroy the laws of physics by creating a longer day. What do you mean by make time?
Well, we do know Stephen Hawking's nephew, don't we? So we could ask him.
That's true. Yeah.
See what Paul says. No, you can make more time by either delegating things, as we talked about last week. Delegation is kind of a key thing. You can move things to other people in your team, and you can stop doing certain things, which is my absolute favorite. Just stop doing them. And I'll give you a tip. This is my hot tip, but it's not my hot tip. It's a hot tip, right?
It's a medium tip.
Yeah, for a week, just for 1 week, every time you're going to do something, pick up the phone, send an email, write something, read something, whatever it is, ask yourself, if I don't do this, what will happen? And if the answer is, well, nothing bad in the short term, it's up for grabs. You could let that go, potentially let that go.
Okay.
It's a trick that I'm not a time management coach, but it's something that they'll use. You question everything at the point of questioning it, rather than trying to sit down and do all the things you do and think, oh, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Should I be doing this presentation right now? Should I be doing this show right now?
Yes, of course. Well, otherwise, I'd just be talking to myself. It'd be very odd.
Oh, yeah. There is that. Yeah, well, this is part of a strategy for us. Weirdly, if I missed one or two of these things, it wouldn't make any difference at all. It wouldn't. I mean, there's a thing about completeness, and well, I've got to do it because I do it every week. People depend upon it. Well, fine. But if I didn't do it 1 week, if I was so stressed out or so busy I didn't do it, what would happen? Shall I tell you? Nothing. Nothing. If I moved it to every 2 weeks, probably nothing would happen either. And there's quite a lot of things that we are emotionally attached to. You know what I mean by that? That we really want to do and believe we should do, and we like doing in many cases. And we feel that people would look badly on us if we stopped doing that.
Yeah, it's linked to our self-esteem or how others view us or things like that.
Yeah, well, I tell you, when I used to work with lawyers, just quick story on this.
Oh,
right?
Lawyers,
yeah, bless their hearts. I said to them, they like going to black tie do's, which they always struggle to get people to go with them. I mean, it's bizarre. They buy a table, $4,000, and then they're ringing around the cleaner's brother to see if he can come. And you got black tie.
I never get wrong. I love a black tie event. I'm available for black tie events.
Really, if it was full of lawyers, I don't mean to be harsh, but
I can
anyway.
have fun at an insurance convention.
So anyway, I said to them, well, we should stop doing that, really, because no, we have to do that because we have to be seen. Yeah. So we ran a little survey, a little informal survey. If we didn't show up for that, would it make any difference? Would you think badly of us? Nobody cared, because they don't go either. So quite often we are connected and linked to things that we definitely think need to be done, but actually they don't. Yeah. So that can free up a little bit of breathing space, perhaps, give you enough time to do something. You've got time now to do something. Another thing that you shouldn't do, it's so negative, isn't it, really? Negative.
It's okay. That's okay. Because sometimes cutting things out is easier to do than making it positive. So
we're
not being negative, we're just telling you.
Don't rush out and hire loads of people, right? Because for two reasons, really. First of all, I mean, everyone's paying top dollar at the moment.
At the moment, right? Geez, yeah.
Mega top dollar. Average people who you just think to yourself, 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't have hired. You take them in now, and you probably pay 50% more than you would have done. It's mad. So you're hiring at the top of the cycle, which means that at some point when the cycle drops again, you've either got to let people go or say to them, we need to talk about your package, mate, because
it's going to fly for a bit longer.
Yeah. But it's not about that. That's not the thing. Pay the money if you need to. You can always deal with that later. What it is that when you bring someone in, that's going to cost you time, right? To assimilate someone properly, to bring them in. What is it? Is it Star Trek the Borg or something? When you Yeah, it's like that, isn't it? When you bring them in and make them part of the collective.
The onboarding process and making sure that they fit with the thing, that they're comfortable, they have everything they need.
No, I'm going with integration to the Borg. I'm going with that there. So I've got that now. People walking around like that and everything. No, but you bring them in and want them to work in a certain way. You want the quality to be good, want them to know all your key messages, to do a really good job, not just, yeah, there's a desk, get on with it. I mean, if that's your stance, well, fine, you can carry on doing it. But if you're going to do a proper job of assimilating someone into your business, into the collective, which I'm very attached to now, by the way.
Yeah.
Have you got a picture of the Borg you can bring up?
No,
first?
we're not doing it. Move on.
Then it's going to take time. And so I'm not saying don't hire, but make sure you've got the capacity to bring someone up to speed to the level that you want, so that service levels don't drop even further because someone new has come in and it's like blundering around in their size 9s. So, and let's hire 10 people. Let's get loads of people in. Well, yes, provided you can manage that integration into your business.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes
Whether
sense.
you're a Borg or not, really.
We've got to move off from this Borg thing. Right, I'm moving on to the next one. So I know you've mentioned this before, is that it's about sort of saying no to people.
Well, okay, let me take a step back from that. Right? Yes, it is. We'll come to that in a minute. But the first thing is to understand the capacity that you have in your business. Now, you might say, well, I know what that is. I get that. I understand. I know what I can do and what I can't do. And that's fine. I'm not saying you don't. It's not my place to do that. But every machine has a capacity that it can do. A car can only go so fast. A factory can only produce so many widgets in a certain time. Everything has a capacity, and so does your company. 100% has a capacity, unshakable. So what you need to do as part of that is understand what that is. Now, we've actually got this cute little model, which if there's any of my clients listening and you want us to do this for you, no problem, we can do it, or people do it for you. But we got this little model, and you give it certain pieces of information, and it can tell you how many requirements and therefore how many placements you can make each month with the team that you have. And that's your capacity. That's it. Now, you can go above that, like you can in a factory. You can say to people, can you work overtime? Because that's, I've worked in the factory. That happens really. When I used to be at GEC all those years ago, I was in the computer center. We were kind of working on projects and we're not going to hit the deadline. Can you do some overtime? Yeah, sure. But you can't do it forever, because what happens is your productivity gradually drops. So you're working longer hours, but delivering exactly the same amount of work. So what you have to do is use overtime, or can you put a bit of extra effort in as a burst to get you through something, and then let it drop back again, not as a new level. And a new level,
very short-term solution. It's a very, so it would be sometime, for example, the thing I can think of is end of financial year for like accountants. They tend to get very busy then, and it would be for a couple of week period. But then after the end of the financial year, things calm down a little bit. They should have like this is for this thing, and afterwards we'll have a bit of free time, because otherwise you'll just demoralize your staff, won't you? Yeah,
it does. Yeah. When I was a programmer, literally it was the end of it was always the same, 3 months out from the delivery date. It's like, well, we ain't going to deliver this. No, overtime. And we'd have 3 months where we made loads of money. But it's not sustainable. Yes. Good old GEC. Good old GEC.
I wonder why.
They bought me a new car one year. But that's not sustainable. It's not, you've got to think long term with all of this. Everything's long term here. This is not just about what's happening right now in this little burst of time where we're just like mad. It's not going to last forever. We got inflation going up to 7.5%, and we've never, we very rarely have high inflation and low unemployment. Normally we have high inflation and high unemployment, or the government will open the borders up, or something will give, because it cannot carry on like this. It
has to, doesn't it?
It's hurting industry, and the government will do something about it one way or the other, or the economy will do something about it. Right, so it's only for a period of time. I'm not saying, by the way, before anyone writes in, the whole thing is going to collapse, because it's not. But what I'm saying is that, you just have to think about the machine and think of it in a longer term rather than the next 3 months. Your reputation is important. So over, taking on too much and under delivering, that's not a good thing. Your staff, the longevity of your staff in your business is a thing. All of that is up for threat just because you've got this sudden burst of requirements. And I know I'm listening to myself now. It's like so negative, and I don't mean to, but I have seen this before, and not just once. Been in this business 34 years this year. Seen it a lot.
Did you start when you were 3?
I started when I was 8, Kirsty.
A classic joke.
Okay. Classic, yeah. All right, let's move on, because we've got time pressing. There's another couple of things.
Yeah, so there's this one that I wanted to talk about. It being it's okay to turn down business, because I feel like a lot of people don't think it is. I think some people maybe think that their client will be offended, like that they think, well, I'm too good. You're too good for my business, or that they'll lose a client if they say
Go
no
somewhere else,
once.
yeah.
It's a really common thing that you get. Like, I can't turn down business, when in my experience it's sort of been the opposite, I guess.
Well, the professional thing to do is not to take on business you can't deliver at a high standard. That's the professional thing to do. So if you class yourself as, I mean, I think all recruiters are professionals, really, in the sense that it is a profession, not just a job. So as a professional, shouldn't take on work that you can't deliver to a really good standard. And so this isn't about grabbing opportunity and hoping your best. That's very short term. This is about, someone says to you, can you do this? You need to either say, well, no, I can't, especially if it's not in your sweet spot. I mean, this is a time as well to turn down work that you're not really that good at, really, or you don't make a lot of money at.
Do you know what it reminds me of? I remember this story back in the day of SK. There was a client that you'd been trying to get into, and there was a competitor of yours that just absolutely owned that client. He like literally nailed it. And then a requirement came through from this company for you at SK, and you guys were like, right, we're going to nail it. We're going to destroy this. We're going to absolutely destroy it. And it turns out that he'd recommended you to them. And then when you tried to grow
Alan.
in there,
You mean
I do mean
Alan, don't you?
Alan. And then you
Alan
tried to grow in there.
Yeah, Alan Schofield as software personnel. It was Lucas, as I recall, aftermarket. Nailed it. We got a call from Lucas. We were all excited. And Alan had said to Lucas, I can't do this. You better ring SK. They're okay at this, right? We did it. And then he just went back to Alan because Alan had said do that. So we did it. You know, so it's okay. It's a professional thing to do. And actually, you know, weirdly, it can actually strengthen relationships. I kid you not.
Yeah.
Right. It's a weird thing, but it actually can strengthen relationships, because what you're saying is, yeah, I can do it, but I can't do it now. I can do that if you want to wait, like the builder we talked about. You know, you go out to get a builder's quote. We were talking about this before on air, before we came on air. We get a builder's quote, and if they're a good builder, they're almost certainly not going to be available now. So if they say, yeah, I can start tomorrow, it means they're not a very good builder, or they're quite a good builder, but they just lie and they'll just have you strung along. And I was reminding you that my father, God rest his soul, a dear man, was actually quite a good builder. I used to work with him occasionally, but he was a dreadful businessman, and he would say yes. I was telling you that story of Mrs. Ames, years ago, not long after we'd been married, went somewhere and someone said, oh, Ames, are you related to Dennis Ames? And she's like, well,
rookie error. You always answer that question with,
might be.
Who's asking? Why?
It's because he came to my house 3 years ago, put the footings in, and we've never seen him since. And that was quite a popular thing. No, but people do that in the recruitment. Yeah, I'll get some CVs across to it, and then don't follow it through because they can't follow it through. So if you're a professional and good at what you do, you're going to be stacked out right now. Everyone knows that. So the professional thing to do is say, well, yeah, I can do that, but I can't do it. I can schedule it in, you know, for the middle of March. And weirdly, I mean, even if people say, well, I can't wait that long, well, I respect that. I understand it. But, you know, I couldn't be able to do a great job. Yeah, I get that. So, but weirdly, a lot of people say, I'll wait then.
Yeah.
As you would with a builder. You wouldn't keep ringing around until you found a builder that would say, yeah, I can do it, because they're either lying to you or rubbish, right? So it's the same thing. So to be able to say, yeah, I can do it, and I'll do a great job for you, but I can't do it yet, is a really important thing.
It's about managing expectations. And even if they do go somewhere else because it's urgent, because you've almost told them to, the same things happens with Alan, is they go back to you afterwards. Like, I used you for that, but this is my ideal person, really.
Because you've potentially risked that relationship to do the right thing, and they know that. They know that. And I think it's such an important mindset. So the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? No, that is rubbish. That is rubbish. Unless you've got, I mean, if you've got 30% extra capacity in your business, and I always was a big believer of that, by the way, and still am. I mean, you can't do it now, but when things calm down, always have extra capacity in your business, because your service levels will never drop, and you can always say yes. But right now you can't. So you have to say, well, yes, I can, but the other thing that you can do, so you can turn to your advantage, because that strengthens your brand and strengthens your relationship and your professionalism with clients, particularly if it's a new client coming in. someone said, oh, you should speak to so-and-so, they're good at what they do, so you're so-and-so, they ring you and you say, well, yes, I can do that. Got a lot of track record in that space. We know a lot of people in there, but we are at capacity now. I'm working on that at the moment. Got people coming in, but I'm not going to let them loose on anybody until I'm 100% certain that they're good at what they do, till we train them up and assimilated them into the collective.
I'm gonna ban this phrasing. I don't.
So it's good for that. But the other thing you can do is you just put your prices up. You know, we are in a commodity supply and demand world. Now, let me just put a caveat on that, if I can. If you take the mickey too much with your existing clients, that will bite you in the ass, right? Definitely it will. And we are going to talk about pricing, because it's a subject close to my heart. It's the thing I like to do first with my clients. They don't always want to do it, funnily enough, but I like to do it if possible, because I can pay for my services by the extra money I can make them by putting their prices up, because I ask them to, right? So I'm dead keen on it. And we are going to talk about that on a future show. But you can put your prices up. You can actually say, well, to do that, it's going to cost you this.
Yeah.
And that's the deal. And the measure with pricing, in case anyone didn't know this, is that you should lose 20% of your pitches or your opportunities because of price, because then you know you got your price point about right.
Yeah.
So if you're winning all the opportunities you go for, you're too cheap.
Too cheap and should be more expensive. But also, we are in the value industry, right? People pay for value, not for getting things done. And you're valuable.
Well, yeah, you get me the
is
pricing now, but basically, when you pitch something, there's what you're offering, there's the price, and they must balance.
Yeah.
If the price is higher, the perception is that it's higher than the value, they won't buy it. If it's the other way around, then you're too cheap. So you've got to get that balance right, and it's important that you do. And that's part of this, is that you have to work so much harder now to get good people. It's a fact. You have to dig deeper, go further, compete. You're going to get more people getting to interview stage and then dropping out because they've been offered another job. There's a lot of wasted effort now. Clients might say that's not my problem. Well, it isn't, except that some people will pay for it because they know it's not my fault. It's just the way the world is. I have to work harder, and you need to pay me for that to get that person in. So, you know, and don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to have that conversation, even with existing clients, if it's handled properly.
Yeah.
You know, you need to do it with sensitivity and explain why you're doing what you're doing, and the fact that when things even up, then they will come down again. But we do live in a supply and demand environment, don't we?
We do indeed. And this is one of the few times, I mean, historically, everybody knows clients like to drive. You never had prices go up traditionally with a client. But right now, like you say, there are extenuating circumstances. And you, at the end of the day, are running a business, and you should be able to get paid for what you're doing. If you're doing more, you should get paid more. That's the way I like it.
Yeah, I think that's the case, actually. Yeah. I think that's very much the case. Yeah.
Okay. You know, all right. So I think we're kind of running towards the end of the time here. So I just want to do a quick recap before I come to you and ask what we're going to.
You've got 3 minutes to do it all. So.
Oh, you know, I can do this. So first of all, running hot basically looks like it's stressed out staff. Your service levels are dropping, so your clients are getting a bit unhappy with you, a bit grizzly. Your conversion rates are dropping more than they probably should in an environment that we're currently in. There's like a level of this, and when they're dropping down here, and you're losing the time to have the critical non-essentials, those things that build relationships and make your relationship strong with your client. And also, I think you're not happy if you're a solopreneur. Like, you are stressed out. You don't spend enough time with your family or doing your hobbies or doing the things that you enjoy as well. So there are lots of things that you can do. The first thing is beware about hiring too many staff, because you have to make sure that they're onboarded properly. And sometimes if you hire in mass, you can create levels around service level. You can create issues around service levels.
There's a time cost to hiring people, for sure.
Exactly. So be aware of that. You need to consider your capacity. Figure out what realistically your team as it stands, whether that's just you, or whether you have people or you have a virtual team, what those people can do capacity wise. Then perhaps add 5% on for short periods of, intense pressure. But you don't have to pay for that in one way or another. And consider your capacity. If you're running at the edge of your capacity, it's okay to turn down business. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean being like, no, I'm not doing it. It doesn't mean that, but it means like, I could do it, but I'll have to do it later, or I can't do this, but I believe this person could probably help you on this role, or whatever it may be. It's okay to do that. It's okay to sort of,
it's necessary to do that.
Manage expectations is the way to think about it. It's not about turning down business, it's managing expectations. And finally, a flair special, as the way I like to think about it, is raise your prices. We all love it. It's a good thing to do. We love it. Right, summarize, Mike. So now I'm going to come to you for the top tips. So people are watching this and that's great stuff, Mike. What do I do first?
Okay, my top tip is get into the habit of saying yes, but. Yes, I can. Well, if you can do it, obviously, don't take on what you can't do. There's a sort of an assumption there, but yes, I can do that. But I know the capacity of what I've got and what I can do, and I'm not going to overstep that because service levels will drop. I can start that second week in March or whenever it is. If you want me to do that, then I'm well up for it. I'd like to, but I'm not going to put you in a position where you expect something I can't deliver. It's the professional thing to do. It's very easy to do, and actually, in many cases, people will either wait, or if they've got to go somewhere else, they will remember that and they will come back.
Okay, fantastic. So, Mike, next week, I believe we're talking about AIDA.
We are, yes. No one's got a clue what AIDA is. It is quite simply the most powerful marketing tool there is. It's free because it's a methodology. I'm going to tell you what it is. You can use it for winning new clients. You can use it to start conversations with candidates. You can use it in presentations. You can use it in emails. It is magical. And it's been around since, I think, 1913. So powerful. I'm going to talk to you about what it is and then talk to you about the applications. I am very excited about this because I love it. I'm even going to give you an instance where we started conversations with some very, very hard to reach clients using a campaign, I think 7 of them, a campaign that costs £350. So that's part of that AIDA thing. So
huge fan of that. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for everybody who watched today's episode, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you very much to Mike for just being fabulous as always.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you for being fabulous too. We're both fabulous. I'm loving all of that fabulousness. Okay, we'll see you next week, guys. Bye.